Aldo, good to see you. Nice for you to join us today. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
So I have to ask you a question because I know you and we're both music fans. We're both musicians. We play things as well. I know you're a guitar player. I play drums. What is the deal with this connection between coders and musicians? I remember speaking to Woz previously, and he said there's this high rate of coders who are also musicians. So what's going on there?
I think there's a kind of explanation coming from neuroscience. The same regions of the brain are actually dealing with mathematics and logic, are also dealing with music structure and stuff. So, yeah, that correlation is true, and I think we can find some answers in neuroscience.
Well, I know you put together a special video to show everyone talking about this idea of augmented coding. I haven't seen it. I don't think you've seen it, so this is going to be a first for both of us.
I haven't seen it, so it's going to be first time for me too. So let's do it.
Great. Let's play the video now.
Code. We are talking about code here. The business of the future is built with code. Probably your business is going to be built with code, and not just any code. You will need quality code, you will need code that is safe, you will need code that is maintainable and well documented. You will need to meet high standards and good practices for your code that will probably be living on top of code that is maybe 10 or more years old. And if that wasn't enough of a challenge, you will need that faster than ever, in record time. So we are kind of in a crossroad here. The business of the future depends on a scarce and limited good, such as software development capacity. Market hasn't enough developers, enough trained engineers to fulfill that demand. This is the kind of problems that required a radical, different approach. To ensure the survival of the business, you will need to invest wisely. Smart money, as they say. When you have to decide where to invest your money, the most underlooked areas that will actually create a massive impact in the business is on how to improve and enhance the way we code. Since we cannot produce developers out of thin air, we need to solve this shortage. We need people to be able to learn how to code in no time. We need developers to learn new languages and new frameworks in no time. At Globant, every time we ask ourselves about this, we think on how to solve this problem, we circle back to the same concept. And the concept is a big challenge. It's the distance that exists between human language and programming language. It would be very easy if we could tell computers what we want them to do. as have them understand us, in our own language. But that seems quite impossible, driven by the fact that computers and humans don't share a common language. Back in the 50s, when computer science was rising, given the introduction of digital computers, there was this belief that understanding our language and being able to communicate with us in a natural way would be something very easy for computers to achieve. It turned out that, other very complicated tasks, for example, playing chess or, I don't know, discovering prime numbers with millions of digits, were solved decades before than this ability. Why? Because human language is extremely complex in many aspects, from sound production to the usage of words, even to higher level concepts such as semantics. Cracking natural language is a very complicated task for computers. Fun fact, we kind of solved that at the age of 2, probably, typically. We had to wait almost 70 years to actually see computers outperforming humans in natural language understanding. We now have the technology to train machines on how to understand our language. And not just the words we use, but also the meaning of the words, its significance in a context, and even, the idea behind higher or bigger structures such as paragraphs or documents. And this is happening, since the last few years. We are witnessing the moment where AI is starting to deeply understand our natural language, the way we speak, the way we write, the way we communicate ideas. This is very relevant in many aspects of our life, but especially for businesses. This is why at Globant we have invested talent, time, and money into reinventing one of our core activities, the way we produce code. And we are doing that by leveraging these modern approaches, these modern AI approaches that teach machines how to understand language, or in other words, language models. Applying the same concept, the same language models, not just for the understanding of natural language, but for the understanding of programming language, is shortening the gap between people and code, between human language and code, making people code faster, collaboratively, and with less errors. This is the heart of augmented coding. If you have ever touched a line of code, all these things may sound familiar to you. For example, complex and huge code bases, undocumented code, legacy code, extremely tight deadlines or roadmaps. In fact, those are the biggest pains in a day-to-day of a developer. Augmented coding was designed to deal with those problems, with those pains, to make developers' life easier and helping them being more productive. This is based in many functionalities that are powered by our AI models. I will name just a few so you can have a grasp of augmented coding. First of all, searching. Searching in a big code base for something that is maybe unique to that code base is a tricky task, especially for developers with little experience or for teams taking over projects or stuff like that. You need to know keywords, you need to know knowledge domain, you will need to know some particular vocabulary, and even some business to fully understand the code. With the semantic code search coming from the combination of natural language understanding and programming language understanding, we can teach computers on how to learn the relationship between these two different worlds, the relationship between these two different languages. With this, developers can search for code just by explaining what they need the code to do. No keywords, no other information needed. This considerably speeds up the software development process, make developers quickly follow up new code without having to have their technical lead or a software architect by their side all the time answering questions. It gives developers a greater autonomy in their day-to-day work. For me also, documenting code is something that is necessary but yet very painful, And this could be for many reasons. legacy code is hard to understand. Maybe when you are writing code and you have a tight deadline, you cannot or you don't have time to document code. So documenting code is a good practice that is often neglected. With our algorithm of automatic code documentation, developers can receive suggestions generated by an AI algorithm that will help them document code faster. We actually pushed models like one step further. We are talking about our fourth generation of algorithms here, what we internally call AC4 for Augmented Coding 4. With these models, we can basically give to the model a piece of code, and the model will generate a readable piece of text that will explain what the code is doing. This is very powerful in the context of legacy code, in the context of poorly documented or poorly maintained code. It can save hours, of time lost into understanding the code and correctly documenting it. Last but not least, I want to talk about code generation. This is the ultimate challenge in the combination of AI and coding, as Michael told us a couple of minutes before. Generating functional code out of a text description of what we want that code to do is a hard problem, but we are taking some steps into that. In fact, we are leveraging our accurate semantic representation of code to generate little pieces of code while developers are coding to basically complete their intent. Again, same as the documentation, this autocomplete is fully generated by AI and directly delivered to the developers in the IDE. It complements somehow the autocomplete in the IDE, because that is somehow syntax. It comes from the syntax of the language. Our autocomplete is semantics. Somehow we are understanding, what the developers wants to do and trying to help him. Having said all this, it's pretty easy to show this value to developers and to techies, including myself. When you see code embeddings, text generation, code generation, and stuff, we technology guys, we tend to be pretty amazed by this technology. In fact, in our development team, we had a lot of wonder moments with this technology, appreciating its value. But I think it's fundamental for the business that you visualize the impact for this technology, and this impact is appreciated. We are talking here about exponentially accelerate the software development process, and even lowering the barriers to create more open and diverse teams, because again, we are shortening the gap between human language and computer language. This is a quantum leap for an industry that you wouldn't believe that but in many years, it hasn't reinvented too much. With the combination of these features, semantic search, and the possibilities of code and text generation using AI, augmented coding is revolutionizing the way we understand code. Because everything, and I will go back to the first concept, everything is software. The way we are going to write the future of business is with software development, no matter the industry, no matter the country. We should all see software as leverage to make our business stay relevant and grow. And we got it. With augmented coding, Globant is taking software development to the next level.